Have you seen the new Distress Spritz by Tim Holtz and Ranger Ink? Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. Most of you may be familiar with the vibrancy of these new sprays. So today I'm going to show you how you can create a soft watercolor effect on your scrapbook layouts with these new products. Over the weekend, these new sprays were introduced, and I've partnered with scrapbook.com to share some fun shimmery projects with you. On the day these sprays were introduced, I created a simple video where I shared my tips for mixing and layering these Distress Spritz, and I showed you some simple cards that you can create. In that video, I showcased the vibrancy of these new sprays, but I thought that it would be good to show you another method of using them on a scrapbook project. I always like to share multiple ways that you can use items that you have in your craft collection. So we're going to create a soft shimmer with less vibrancy. I'm also going to share more tips and tricks for using these new Distress Spritz sprays. As I create the project, I'll bring in some of my favorites from scrapbook.com. All of the items I'm using can be found in the description below, along with the link to the how-to video I created a few days ago. I'll be creating the title with stamps using this Sweet Expression collection. These floral dies are some of my favorites and are perfect for the season. I'll combine these with the Card Maker metallic and black sentiments and some paper patterns in these A2 paper pads. Small prints like these are perfect for backing your photos. I will be adding some lovely butterflies that I cut from some mixed media paper using these dies, and I'll be adding color to those with these new Distress Spritz sprays. Let's get started with this project. I swatched each of the new Distress Spritz colors on black and white mixed media paper. I want you to be able to see how different each of these look as the pigment settles over the top of the porous paper. I started with picked raspberry, then spiced marmalade, which, as you can see, has a glorious copper color to it. Twisted citron looks a little different than I expected, but I like the brighter green in that one. I also shared uncharted mariner and wilted violet. These swatches give you an idea of how vibrant the colors are and how they look when sprayed or spritzed on black and white mixed media paper. Of course, some of you just love these bright colors, but I also like working with softer hues. So let me show you how I lessen the intensity of these Distress Spritz sprays. On my desk, I have a 12-inch piece of Vicki Boutin foundation paper. This is a great heavyweight cardstock for mixed media projects. I'm going to start out with a coat of water over the top of my cardstock. Then, instead of spraying these, I'm just going to splatter the pigment onto my background. I've just unscrewed the spray top, and I'm just going to tap on this cap lightly to sprinkle the pigment around my page. Right away, you can see how this softens the color of the picked raspberry Distress Spritz. The shimmer is still there, but they now have more of a watercolor look. I'm also going to bring in a little of the twisted citron. This color has more of a yellow hue when it's sprayed onto the white paper, but as you can see, those little flecks of green come through as it spreads in the water. There's also a hint of gold in this one. The final color is Uncharted Mariner. Now, this one was more intense than I anticipated when it hit the water, so I'm going to spray a little more over the top to help it spread. That softened it some and brought out some bits of gray and silver. I'm going to dry this with a heat tool and let those pigments set off camera, and then I'll share a few more project ideas with you. Off camera, I stitched that Distress Spritz splatter background onto a piece of 49 in Market pattern. I wish you could see all the details in person. Even in those soft colors, the shimmer shows through as it dries, and the hues became even softer still. Behind my photo, I have brought in some of the smaller A2 patterns from scrapbook.com. These paper pads are the perfect size for backing photos. For my title, I'm going to use one of the rub-on phrases from this Cardmaker Sentiment collection. Now, if you love really simple stamp-like looking images, then these rub-ons are a great alternative to stamping. I'm one who really enjoys collecting sentiment stamps. To be honest, I'm a bit picky, and I prefer ones with multiple sentiments that can be used over and over again. This one here is a favorite of mine. It's great for card making and scrapbooking. I'm going to stamp the word beautiful onto my page, and below that I'm going to apply the rub-on word strength. I like to secure one end of the rub-on transfer with mint tape so that it doesn't shift. The tape also acts like a hinge and allows me to lift the carrier sheet and check to see if I transferred the entire image. How lovely is that? This is such a simple title, but it fits the page and our daughter perfectly. Around the photo, I'm going to add a few flowers. These were cut from white cardstock using the Sunny Lane die collection. In my background, I used quite a bit of the Uncharted Mariner to match her blue eyes, and I have some flecks of yellow in the Twisted Citron. So I'm going to make these a soft yellow with squeezed lemonade Distress Oxide ink. This color is going to pair perfectly with the other hues on the page, and the flower shape matches the pattern papers I chose. I'm going to keep this simple with a large flower and two medium-sized ones. These are going to tuck right here above and below my photo. Aren't they lovely? All right, let me share some more Distress Spritz techniques with you. After my first video, I had a few questions, and as you know, I'm a teacher at heart, so I thought I would address them real quick. A few of you asked if these are just like the mica stains from Ranger ink, and the answer is no. If you watched Tim's video, he spoke about the formulation of these Distress Spritz sprays and the difference between these and the mica stains. Now, I'm not going to go into all of that because his video does a much better job at explaining it, but basically the mixture isn't the same. So what does that mean? When I was experimenting with these, I noticed that the color floats on the surface. As it dries, it stabilizes. It also doesn't react with the other products I used. On the card backgrounds I made, I sprayed the Picked Raspberry Distress Spritz over Distress Oxide ink, and there was no reaction. The Distress Spritz does not have a reactive quality like Distress Oxide inks, but you can reactivate them. When I spray these with water, you're going to see that the color changes a bit, and I can remove some of the pigment to soften the intensity. That's what I'm going to do for my page. Even after I reactivate the pigment with water and remove some of the color, there is still some great shimmer on here. When the Distress Spritz dry, they are permanent, acid-free, and they don't wipe off. As I rub my finger over this, you can see no shimmery mess on either the white or the black mixed media paper. Full disclosure here, I did use a mixed media paper, which is porous, and it's designed to hold a variety of mediums. Depending on the type of paper you use, you may notice different results, but they are designed for porous surfaces, so keep that in mind. I also let the butterflies and the card background sit for about 24 hours. I noticed that it took a little longer for the thick layers of the Distress Spritz spray on the card to become permanent, but the sprays on the scrapbook background was set in about 2 hours. There were some suggestions in my comments to use Distress Glaze over the top. This is a waxy coating that is recommended for the mica stains. When you use Distress Glaze, you add a small coating of it over the top of your pigment. You wipe off the excess and it seals in your stain. Now, you could do this, but like one of the other viewers said, I really don't have time to do this to all my large scrapbook backgrounds. And honestly, I feel the same way. Distress Glaze is not needed with Distress Spritz sprays. I have had no issues with any of this rubbing off on my hands. All right, let's take these butterflies and add some to the layout. I have some solid pieces that I sprayed with picked raspberry, twisted citron, and uncharted mariner. After the Distress Spritz dried, I sprayed a little water over the top and removed some of the pigment to soften the color. The shimmer is still there, but now they have a watercolor-like look. Over the top, I'm going to adhere some vellum butterfly layers that I cut with the same die set. I'll adhere these with some liquid adhesive. I'm using Artiste glue because I'll be adding zigzag stitching to the centers with my sewing machine. As I finish piecing everything together, I'd appreciate it if you could spare a moment to click the thumbs up icon or hit the subscribe button as well. Your feedback and these actions helps me to understand what you enjoy creating. My goal is to spark your creativity with fresh projects and introduce you to some techniques you can use on your next project. I adhered the butterflies in place with some thin foam tape. To help this appear a little less random, I layered them over the same color splatters in the background. Now I'm going to bring in some more of those lovely rub-on transfer images. I'm going to start with the gold butterflies. These are a perfect addition to all the shimmery pieces on this page. Once those gold butterflies were in place, I decided to bring in more butterflies to the page. I like the mix of soft pastels with black. I feel like it creates such a dynamic statement. I'm going to finish this up and then I'll share the completed layout with you. Recently, I shared an introduction video to these Distress Spritz by Tim Holtz and Ranger Ink, and I shared some cards that you can make by layering these products over ink and texture paste. Today, I wanted to show you a softer approach to using these products and how you can create this lovely watercolor looking background and soft butterflies using the Distress Spritz. Now I'm going to bring this up to the camera because I want to show you all the shimmer and shine that still exists even though we've watered down that product. It's been about 24 hours since I made this page, and as you can see, I can rub my finger over the top and I don't have any residue. To finish off the layout, I added some butterfly trails with embroidery thread. I also layered some pattern paper leaves with the flowers, and I added some buttons to the centers. My goal today was to share some more Distress Spritz techniques with you so that you can learn how to incorporate these new Tim Holtz products into your paper crafting projects. I showed you how to soften the intensity of the pigments, how to create soft, shimmery hues, and I shared some of my tips for creating a permanent, photo-safe finish that doesn't require any glaze or finishing spray over the top. If you're one who likes to pin photos to inspiration boards, I've added still shots of this layout in my scrapbook.com gallery and on my website for you to use. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions about this project or the supplies I used, feel free to leave me a comment below. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.